Welcome to the Becoming with Wawa and Ona podcast, where we interview young, extraordinary people, youth entrepreneurs, and talk about relatable topics for the youth. I'm your host, Ra.
And I'm your host, Ona.
And today we're joined by
Joshua.
Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you.
So, can you please introduce yourself, Joshua, to the viewers?
Perfect. So my name is Joshua Sigmani. I study at WITS. I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree. So I have a business called Pinnacle Tuition. I'm 20 years old and I'm very excited to be here with you guys today.
So, can you please tell us a little bit about your business and how did you get started?
Okay, so in my business, I arrange tutors for grade 8 to 12, and they tutor for all subjects such as physical science, maths, and natural science. So how I actually began this business was when I started tutoring back in 2021, I became quite busy in the sense that I wasn't able to be at 10 places at once, and it was taking so much of my time. So I then began to understand that I'm able to help other tutors teach as well. So I then began to start training tutors when I went to university, which was last year. So I taught other tutors, how to be very vocal, how to be very understanding and relatable to students. And I then started getting many tutors who were somewhat older than me, if I can say, to start tutoring. And that's eventually how I began my business. So I started getting tutors and the students and then connecting both of them.
Okay, so your business is not tutoring, but it's hiring tutors to tutor.
Yes, so essentially what I do is I train the tutors first of all to see that they are able to teach, because I have over, let's say, 4 or 5 years experience of tutoring, because I've been tutoring since matric. So I was tutoring some of my own peers when I was in high school, and because of that I know how to handle any kind of student, the stubborn students, the angry students, the shy students, whatever it might be. So I then coach tutors and I take them through a sort of program to help them tutor. And even if they have no experience, I'm able to help tutors do that.
So, how did you come up with the name Pinnacle Tuition?
Okay, perfect. So as you know, the word pinnacle means the top. So the reason why I chose the word pinnacle is because as cringe as this sounds, I do believe that any student who joins Pinnacle Tuition is able to excel and to reach the top and at least their highest potential. So that word pinnacle to me means the top, or the highest potential that you're able to reach in high school or in academics. So the reason why I say we are able to help students reach that highest level is because since I was able to take myself from getting completely low marks to the highest marks possible, I know that I'm able to help other students reach that pinnacle, and that's why I've named the business Pinnacle Tuition.
So do your tutors need to have some sort of qualification or have certain marks to be able to tutor?
Yes, definitely. So I wouldn't imagine that you want a tutor, that got like 40% in maths teaching you how to get a distinction. So I have a strict requirement, that they have to have a certain level in the subject that they want to teach. So let's say if you want a physics tutor, so my requirement would be that they need to have at least about 80%, and then that's also not enough, because you can do really well, but if you are unable to teach, then I'm not willing to have you on board. So I take them through a program where I first have to see if they can handle certain scenarios with students, even if they have no experience at all. As long as there's that small level of potential, then I'm willing to take them on board and coach them and help them improve. So some of the tutors that I have, most of them, you mentioned requirements, so they are all pursuing at least some sort of degree related to the subject that they're teaching. So some of my tutors, for example, are doing like engineering, and since they deal with maths and physics on a daily basis, they have a lot of experience with that. So I then put them on board to teach physics and maths, for example. So that's what the requirements would be for that.
Okay, and your tutors, so they have to be all in university?
Not necessarily all in university, but I do require that they're all at least within a certain age gap. So I tend to lean away from having tutors that are at least like in the 30s or at least above 25. And the reason for that is because of relatability. So if you're now in high school in grade 11, you don't want someone who finished high school 10 years ago compared to someone who finished high school 3 years ago. So you would rather listen to the person who finished 3 years ago to tell you how to get through high school, how to finish matric, because they have current information, current resources, things like that, they can help you. So it's not that they just have to be in university, they have to at least have some level of experience, they have to at least be within that age gap of 18 to 25-year-old, so that I'm able to see that they are able to relate to the students. So that's why that's the age gap I go for the tutors.
So, when did you start having the idea that you want to start a tuition company business?
So I've had the idea since the beginning of 2022, but I never officially, I guess, brought the idea into like fruition because I wasn't sure on how to go about it. So how I actually decided to start going about it was when I had a tutor in university as well. So the tutor I had in university, because he had his own business, so to say, in high school, I came to him for advice and said, okay, this is something that I'm thinking of doing, but I have no idea on how to start it. So he then guided me and said, okay, think about this and whatever it might be, and he gave me some ideas that I can start putting into practice. So once I had those ideas and I had, the vision to see, okay, this is what I want to do, and because I also started running out of time, because I had to focus so much more on university, just taking up like 25/8 of my time, so I had no time at all to tutor any student for 2 hours on a weekend. So I then decided, okay, if I'm able to get students, if I'm able to train tutors, then I'll be covering much more ground, so to say, and I can help 8 students instead of helping 1 a week. I can help 8 students through other tutors. So yeah, that's how I then came up with that idea.
How do you deal with different types of students, like grumpy or shy?
Okay, so more or less with the students who I guess are shy, I always try to put myself in their shoes first of all, and I teach my tutors to do the exact same thing. Because if a student is shy, that does mean that in class, when they see something on the board, they're probably not going to answer the question. They're going to sit there in confusion, and then they're going to wait until exams, and then they'll probably watch a YouTube video, and then even if that doesn't work out, they're still not going to go and try and look for the answer. So I understand what it means to be a shy student. So firstly, I'll put myself in their shoes to see, okay, why are they shy? And then I try to reiterate and make them understand that in all the lessons, it's a place and a space where you're free to ask even the dumbest of questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So for the shy students, I make sure that the tutors understand they need to be a lot more engaging, and they need to involve the students a lot more. So they need to ask the students a lot more questions, make them write on the board and things like that. They need to not give them homework, so to say, but just keep them constantly involved in speaking. Over time, you'll notice that like shy students that will only answer like in the beginning of the lesson, by the end of the lesson they're answering a lot more, or after a couple of months they're a lot more vocal. So that's how we deal with like the grumpy and the shy students. We have to be a lot more, I guess, like with the grumpy students, sometimes you do have to be a little bit blunt to help them understand that it's a place where their parents are paying, and they need to make sure that they're taking full advantage of the fact that they have this person who went from 50s to 80s or 80s to 90s, and they're willing to help you do the same. So I make sure that the students understand it's a safe space, and they shouldn't be fooling around. It's not like school where you have to just sit there and you sit in confusion, as I mentioned. You can ask any question that you want to ask, things like that. Yeah.
So what are some challenges once you started the business, like facing the students, or some challenges you faced that you thought would be easy but actually opposite?
So the main challenge I faced was getting students, and was also through the advertising. So I had a problem in terms of reaching students, because I would post, I would try using Google ads and Facebook ads, and I'm sure you've heard like all these kind of advertisements that seem to work, but I was finding it very difficult. And so that was the main issue that I had, but I eventually overcome that when I went to speak to my old school, and I spoke to the principal, who eventually helped me to speak to the school and get some students and things like that. So the main struggle I had was with advertising. Secondly, it was also with dealing with parents, especially when I was quite busy sometimes. I had to take a call while I was in class and stuff like that. So it was a bit difficult sometimes. But other than that, I haven't had many issues where they were very like detrimental to the business or things like that. So yes.
So because you own a tuition company, right? Would you want to be part of the education system, I guess, or like be a teacher or teach something in the future?
I wouldn't necessarily be a teacher, but I wouldn't mind if I ended up going into something like lecturing. I do have a passion for teaching and for helping students and whatever it might be, but I wouldn't consider it as a career field that I would pursue, such as lecturing. It's a possibility, but I don't think I would go any further right now than handling this. So let's just see what the future has to hold regarding tuition, but for now, this is something I want to do for the next year, 2 years, or whatever it might be.
So what if a tutor has always had like 90%, 100%, right? And then obviously you hire them, and then they come to a student that has had like 40%, right? How do you make sure that tutor doesn't make the child feel little about themselves or
I've had a similar experience to that. So what I would do is I usually join the sessions. So during the first maybe couple, 3 or 4 lessons, I'm in the sessions to monitor, to make sure, okay, is the tutor doing what they're supposed to? Is the student doing what they're supposed to? So at times, there has been a case, where the tutor assumed, that the student was a lot more, I guess, intelligent, whatever it might be. But those are normal things. So what I would do is I would speak to the tutor and say, okay, so we just have to make sure that with the student, I need you to go a lot more slower. I need you to make sure that they're understanding that you're not just going ahead of the topic without making sure that they are on the same page, things like that. So I haven't had a lot of those issues, but as I mentioned, the tutors I have are trained to make sure that they deal with students who are even if they got 90%, they're dealing with students who got 40s. So they're very relatable, they're very humble. I don't have students who belittle anyone or make any student feel any less or feel stupid or anything like that, because they themselves were once at positions. To be getting 90s, you had to start, of course, maybe even if you were in the 60s, you have to start somewhere. So they are always flexible and I guess aware of the fact that the student that they're dealing with, maybe they have to adjust a little bit, but they never belittle the students or make them feel any less than who they are. Yes.
So, do your tutors do online or physical?
So all the tuition is done online, and the reason why is because it's a lot easier for me to monitor, and also because if it's in person, I can't always ensure the safety of the students and the tutor, and I can't always make sure that the tutor and the student are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So since it's online, it's a lot more easier for me to track and to make sure that, okay, the student is understanding, or the tutor and the students are working together well. If I see that they're not working together well, I am able to switch up the tutors, things like that. And because I began tutoring online myself in person in 2021, it became a lot easier to manage online. So I don't really do face-to-face lessons anymore. I only do it if it's completely necessary and if there's no other option. So there is a case, for example, a couple of weeks ago, there was a student who was, because he was having problems with his internet, he then asked me to do in person. So I personally took him upon as my student to tutor in person, and I don't really tutor in person anymore, but other than that, it's strictly online.
So why did you choose the subjects you tutor, or let me ask, which subjects do you offer in
So we offer tuition for all subjects in grade 8 to 12. So it can be any subject that you need help with. I have tutors, basically like a list of tutors that are trained and are efficient in all subjects that they're doing. So whatever subject it is, we're able to help you, like Afrikaans, EGD, whatever it might be.
Which grade would you say is the hardest?
To tutor.
Yeah.
So, personally for myself, I would say grade 8 and 9 would be the hardest. And the reason for that is because I mainly help older students, which is the grade 12s, 11s and 10s. But each grade has its own difficulty. For example, like grade 12, you have to make sure you have to give them a sense of independence, and sometimes that's a bit difficult because you just want to help the student and give them all the answers. but you also have to kind of force him to be responsible himself. So each grade has its own difficulty.
And for a student, which grade would you say is the hardest?
I would say the hardest grade would be grade 11. And the reason why I say grade 11 is because there's all this building up pressure. There's all this pressure that's building up, going into the next year. And you are then deciding, okay, if I should be dropping to Maths Lit, Maths Core, you're also applying for university like reserve spots and things like that. So I would say grade 11 is a lot more harder than grade 12. I'm sure you guys must have heard, like everyone says grade 12 is a lot harder. But personally, I feel that grade 12 is a lot more easier than grade 11 because you are dealing with the topics that you dealt with in grade 11, and because it's a lot more based on like past papers, and you just have to understand the patterns that you see in past papers, and it's a lot more easier to deal with than in grade 11. So it's a grade 11.
So what advice would you give to people that want to start a business but like are too scared to start one?
So the first advice I guess I would give them is to ask themselves, why are they scared? So I guess some common reasons would be, they're scared of what people would think about their business. They're scared about if the business will not be successful. So the advice that I would give to them was take the chance and go for it, because there's never a right time. And I say this because personally, I would always kind of delay this idea. I had this idea at the back of my head, okay, I'm going to do this, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next month. But I'll be like, okay, no, maybe it's not time now, I'm still in university, I don't think it'll work out, and I was listening to people around me. So the advice I would give them would be, stop listening to the people around you, take the chance and go for it, and it will work out. If you put in the effort, you will make the time. If you really want to do it, you'll do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. So take the chance, don't worry about the people around you, and it will work out as long as you put in the effort and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Would you say that schools should start employing, younger people to teach students so that they, understand more and are more patient?
I guess, yes. So the downside to that in teaching in having older teachers is, of course, the experience. But the problem with that is, it's quite evident because you have so many students that are struggling in school and they're coming to tutors. And most of the tutors that you'll find are younger people. So there's clearly a reason why they're struggling with the older teachers. And it's not that the teachers aren't good at teaching anything like that. It's just that it's that level of relatability and the level of, being personal. So by that what I mean is, back in high school, I had a tutor, and that's what actually caused me to go from getting 30s to getting 90s. And the reason why I found this tutor so helpful was because this tutor was very relatable. He was quite young, he was easy to engage with. I wasn't scared to ask him dumb questions, to make jokes and things like that, and it was a lot more kind of free. But I guess with older teachers, there's this level of it's just strictly maths, if I can put it, or just strictly just that subject, and it's hard to engage fully in the lesson. So I would actually suggest that the education system involves a lot more younger teachers because of the relatability, because of the fact that they are able to relate to students in a much more better way and clearer way than older teachers are.
Do you think students start getting better marks after tutors because it's more of a one-on-one session, unlike in class where they have friends and they're embarrassed to ask those questions where they think, oh, this one everyone knows this answer, but then it's
I think that's definitely the reason, and I say it from personal perspective because that was me exactly. In class in grade 11, so I share this with most of the students that end up joining. I was getting 40s and getting 30s, and the main reason why now that I see it was because I was scared to ask questions. I was wondering, is my friend gonna laugh at me? They're gonna think I'm dumb, but they probably don't know the answer as well, So I was scared of being embarrassed. I was scared of the teacher thinking that I'm not paying attention and things like that. And that's why tutoring works, because it's personal sessions. You can ask these questions, you don't have to worry about your tutor laughing at you and things like that. You don't have to worry about anyone else around you. You're in a quiet, private space, just you in your room and your computer and the tutor. And because it becomes very personal, you are able to engage a lot more. And yes, so it becomes a lot more better to tutor because of the one-on-one sessions.
Okay. So where can the viewers learn more about your business?
Okay, perfect. So I have a email address and a website. The email address is pinnacletuitiononline@gmail.com. There is a WhatsApp line, which is my personal cell phone number, and I am available for calls at all times. So that is my WhatsApp number, which is 062-177-4335. I do have a plan picture that I'm able to show the viewers. Pinnacle Tuition, so that's grade 8 to 12, all subjects. You can just search the name Pinnacle Tuition and it should come up, but if you are unable to, I will just say my number one more time, which is 062-177-4335. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for allowing us to interview you today. And we have one more question, which is, would you like to say anything to the viewers?
Okay, so to all the viewers, I'm assuming most of you must be students either struggling in high school, or even if you're not struggling, you may be just on the brink of going from 70s to 80s. So what I can say regarding your academics, whether or not you want to be studying next year or not, it is very important that whatever grade you're in, that you do well and that you at least do your best. Because now that I've been out of high school for a few years, I can see clearly that if I didn't try my best, I would have regretted it. So I urge you to do your best. Don't slack, don't be lazy, push and excel. Just do your best and get help. Don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to reach out to find a tutor, to ask your teachers and your friends, whatever it might be, for help. And for business owners, don't be scared to start your business. Don't be scared to take that leap of faith. If you have a vision and you see it clearly and you're the only one who sees it, that means it can be successful. Because as we know, people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, they had visions that other people around them didn't agree with. So if you have business ideas, and it doesn't matter how old you are, even if you're 10, 12 or 16, you're able to do it if you put your mind to it. So start as soon as possible, don't waste time, get it going and be disciplined and focused, and you'll be able to accomplish anything that you put your mind to.
Okay, well, thank you for that piece of advice to the viewers, and thank you so much for allowing us to interview you, Joshua. And thank you to the viewers for joining us on the Becomingwwo and Ona podcast with our special guest, Joshua. We will be back next week with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep working hard on becoming your future self, and keep up with us by following us on Instagram at becomingwwo.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any ideas you'd like to see on the show. But as for now, it's a bye from us.
Bye.